If you know me, or if you follow my channel, you'll know that I like small computer cases, particularly ITX cases when it comes to custom builds, but this is a pre-built bare-bones system made by Zotac. This is the EK7 1080, and this is one of the smallest, if not the smallest system out there with a full-sized GTX 1080. So not an MXM card, not a laptop card, it's the full-fat GTX 1080 from a desktop stuck into a very small 5.8 liter case. So previously, Zotac made a very similar product to this, the EN1080K. It was a very powerful water-cooled system, but there were three kind of issues to it. First, it used an MXM card. It didn't have the full-size GTX 1080 in it. Second, it was expensive. That thing started at $2,000. Thirdly, the EN1080K needed two AC adapters. It basically had two 300-watt AC adapters that would plug into the back, and it was just honestly unsightly and just unwieldy for a product this small to need two AC adapters. So this one, the EK7 1080, has been updated, if you want to call it that, but now it starts at $1,500, which I think is a pretty fair price for what this thing includes. So for the base model, $1,500, you're not getting RAM, you're not getting storage, but you're getting basically everything else, which I'll discuss in a little bit. Now, if you think you're one of those people that can build a custom PC for $7 that's gonna compare to this, I mean, in this market with the crypto mining happening and all the GPU pricing being as wonky, it's really difficult for me to kind of compare this thing to what a regular build would cost right now. If you're trying to buy a GTX 1080 at a regular $500 or $600 price point, it's gonna be nearly impossible. People are charging like $800-900 for that stuff, which sucks. So the pricing on this thing is actually pretty good if you consider the current market. It's fair if you consider regular pricing. This system runs a single AC adapter. It's this one, the 330-watt behemoth. It's really large, but because it's external, it keeps your case size small. So this 5.8 liter device can sit on your media center, your table, whatever you want, and this thing can sit under your table, in a cabinet, or whatever. So it keeps this thing kind of cleaner and smaller. Now they're able to do that because this thing is running a laptop CPU, the 7700HQ. So this is a 45-watt CPU. The previous generation was a desktop CPU. It used more energy and it produced more heat. Now obviously that one's gonna be a little more powerful in terms of its boost clock, but this thing is very comparable and it uses a little bit less energy, so you don't have to spend as much effort cooling this system down. The last main feature about this mini PC, and probably its best feature, is that this thing is holding a full-sized GTX 1080. This is the reference card, the Founders Edition, and they're able to fit all the processing power from this into here. And this has a full computer inside it. This is just a graphics card. And the performance on the GTX 1080 combined with the 7700HQ is excellent. The desktop grade version of the 1080 is a very capable card, and it'll push excellent frame rates across pretty much every single game that I play. Now, I don't play super graphically intense stuff like GTA 5 and stuff, because the truth is I don't find those games all that exciting. I like more competitive stuff, like I don't do the single player games that much, but single player, multiplayer, competitive, non-competitive, this thing's gonna crush it. It's also a strong performer in VR, and because it's small, you can put it in your backpack and you now have a relatively portable VR capable system. Now, thermal performance is something I think a lot of people are interested in because it's such a small case, and the previous generation, the EN1080K, had water cooling, but this one is air cooled. Now the fan noise is controllable in the BIOS, but if I just left it at standard settings, it's quiet on idle, but during games it can get pretty loud. Now you're not putting the system in front of your face like a laptop, like you're not playing right on top of this thing, so obviously the decibel rating is just for reference so you understand what's going on. It really depends on how close you sit to this machine. When I set this up on my table, I had it about 3 or 4 feet away from me, and I didn't find the fan noise annoying or anything. Now there is some thermal throttling, not a lot. It's hard to pick up on it unless you're actually running a monitoring program. So I actually didn't notice that there was throttling in-game. The frame rates didn't drop, but when I looked at the logs, there was some throttling around the 1 hour mark. Now you can control the fans in the BIOS, so if you set the fans more aggressively, it'll get rid of the throttling, but it becomes louder. So this system, 7700HQ GTX 1080, great performance, and if you pump up the fans, yeah, it doesn't throttle, but I kind of expected this system just run a little bit quieter. The performance is good, and if you set it right, it won't throttle, but it's a little loud. On standard settings, it's quieter, it's just that it can throttle if you play for long periods of time. For ports, we're looking at 5 USB-A's, a USB Type-C, which doesn't support Thunderbolt 3, and we have an SD card, audio jacks, and a pair of Ethernet in the back. It's obviously not as port-filled as like a full desktop system, but for content creation or gaming, this should do the trick. In terms of upgradability, even though it has a desktop GTX 1080 in there, it's not an easy thing to upgrade. I actually think that they say it's not upgradable, but I think you could if you really wanted to. You can see the riser in there and you can see the PCIe connection. So I feel like if you had a small enough card in the future that could fit into this space, it could just connect up, but I'm not entirely sure. In terms of the other stuff, the drives and the memory are all located on the bottom, and you can swap that stuff out pretty readily. There's room for 2 drives and 1 stick of Intel Optane memory, and it can hold up to 32 gigs of RAM. So overall, the upgradability is good. It's just not as good as a regular desktop system. I do like this thing a lot. It's not for everyone. If you're into small cases like I am, and if you like something that's just really clean and relatively modern looking that can sit on your table or your media center if you have this up in your living room or something, this is a pretty good pickup. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.